Good evening. You're watching The Right Stand with me, Poonam Burde. Ahead of Eid, BJP has announced its nationwide campaign to give underprivileged Muslim families a gift this festival. 32,000 minority Morcha workers will be collaborating with thousands of mosques across the country to reach the needy. The Saugat-e-Modi campaign aims to distribute kits with clothes, with dry fruits, with vermicelli, with certain items of gifts as well to at least 32 lakh Muslim families across the country. That was officially launched today. While the BJP called this campaign proof of its Sabka Saath mission, the opposition dismissed it as mere drama. The Saffron Party then said that there is a broader vision to all of this. They said that such campaigns will be running across the country for several other festivals through the year, and it wasn't just religion specific. But that wasn't enough to convince the BJP's political rivals. They linked it to the elections in Bihar, which are slated to be held later this year. They targeted the BJP for trying to fool the electorate, or that's the allegation that they made, that the people of this country were not going to be falling prey to these theatrics, as they called it, of the Saffron Party.
म्यूजिकल कार्यक्रम हुआ था, वो लखनऊ के इतिहास से जुड़ा है। कभी हम लोग भी कराते थे, तब बीजेपी के लोग कुछ और बोलते थे। वो जब आयोजन होता था सूफी म्यूजिक का, तो भारतीय जनता पार्टी के लोग चिढ़ करके कुछ कहते थे।
अगर मुसलमान को सौगात देने की बात आई है तो मुसलमान को सौगात सुरक्षा की दें, मुसलमान को सौगात शिक्षा की दें, मुसलमान को सौगात सम्मान की दें, मुसलमान को सौगात रोजगार की दें। ये सौगात है मुसलमान के लिए। मुसलमान भिखारी नहीं है कि आप उसे भीख में चंद किट बांट करके उसे संतुष्ट कर देंगे।
उन्होंने सोचा है, शायद उसका पास स्टैटिस्टिक्स है कि कोई भी एक माइनॉरिटी की एक ही था इकलौता मिनिस्टर, उनको भी हटाया गया, तो ये ठीक नहीं हो रहा है। वोट के ऊपर असर पड़ रहा है, इसीलिए शायद उन्होंने ये सब कर रहे हैं, लेकिन ये दिखावा है, ये आईवॉश है।
Now, in the recent past, the BJP and the Prime Minister personally have made several attempts to reach out to the minority community. Just last month, Prime Minister Modi participated in the Sufi music festival Jahan-e-Khusro here in the national capital. He showered praise on the Sufi tradition and on Amir Khusro. BJP Minority Morcha has brought on board at least 14,000 people associated with Sufi sites from across the country since 2022 up until now in 2025. Nearly 44 lakh Muslims have also enrolled with the BJP across the country, where the party had set a target to issue 10 crore new members in its recently held membership drive. In October 2023 in Lucknow, BJP's Minority Morcha organized a program under the Sufi Samvad Maha Abhiyan, where close to 200 Sufi saints from across 100 dargahs in the country were present and in attendance. In Uttar Pradesh, the BJP fielded at least 395 Muslim candidates, mostly Pasmanda Muslims, in the 2023 urban local body polls. At least 60 of them won, including 5 Nagar Panchayat chairpersons. The same year, Prime Minister Modi inaugurated a principal educational institute of the Dawoodi Bohra community in Mumbai. The Prime Minister said that he was attending this inauguration event as a family member and not as the Prime Minister of the country. He is known to have close ties with this community and has often attended such events in the past as well. In January 2023, Prime Minister Modi called upon BJP workers, BJP cadre to reach out to marginalized communities regardless of whether they vote for the BJP or not. Prime Minister Modi's instruction to the BJP back in 2022 was to reach out to Pasmanda Muslims in its two-day national executive meeting that was held in Hyderabad. In December 2019, after protests against the Citizenship Amendment Act, the BJP formed a panel as well. It was led by Mukhtar Abbas Naqvi to engage with Muslims across the country and try and dispel the misinformation that was being spread by the BJP's rivals. So the BJP now comes out and says that this kind of move or this kind of initiative or campaign that's being launched is a proof that Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas is not just a mantra for the party or for the government, but it is a mission statement on which they walk the talk.
माननीय प्रधानमंत्री श्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी हमेशा ये कहते हैं कि मैं 140 करोड़ भारतीयों का पालक हूँ। त्योहारों में अभी ईद का त्यौहार आने वाला है, अभी रमज़ान चल रहा है, अभी बैसाखी आएगी, अभी गुड फ्राइडे आएगा, भारतीय नव वर्ष भी आ रहा है। तो इन त्योहारों पे हमने तय किया है कि जब हमारे अल्पसंख्यक मोर्चे कार्यकर्ता जाएंगे तो प्रधानमंत्री श्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी की तरफ से एक किट देंगे, जिसको हमने सौगात-ए-मोदी कहा है।
सौगातों का अंबार तो मोदी जी पहले लगा चुके हैं और जहां तक ईद और होली का प्रश्न होता है आपको पहले ही प्रधानमंत्री का जो मंतव्य है ना, सबका साथ सबका विकास, सबके लिए प्रयास और सबका विश्वास, और सबका विश्वास था, इसीलिए कुंदरकी में 1 लाख से ऊपर, जहां 80% मुस्लिम हो, वहां बीजेपी का विधानसभा का प्रत्याशी उपचुनाव में 1 लाख से ऊपर जीतता है।
एनडीए को धन्यवाद देना चाहता हूं कि माइनॉरिटी के लोगों को पहले भी मिला है बिहार के अंदर, आज भी मिला है।
Let's open this up. Sanju Verma, national spokesperson of the BJP, is with us. Ghalib Academy, spokesperson of the Congress. Priyanka Bharti, spokesperson of the RJD, and political analyst Kailash Adhikari. Ghalib Academy, let me begin by asking you. Today we had the opposition across the board come out and say that this is nothing but a mere eyewash, that this is just political drama by the BJP, which is not going to yield any results. So on one hand, the opposition has united to say that BJP and its allies and the RSS want a Hindu Rashtra, but when they reach out to the minority community, then that seems to be a problem as well.
Poonam, see, I want to remind BJP that what Indian Muslims need is the dignity, self-respect and the equal rights, not some charity wrapped in the free time election freebies. Now, I'd like to tell that I say this is because time and time again we have seen how BJP has continuously made hateful remarks against the community. They have bulldozed the homes of the BJP, snatched away their policies and their scholarships and continuously heckled with the community. And why I say this is because now when they are distributing the free kits among the Muslim community, we clearly know it is not a game of compassion but to buy a desperate attempt to buy the votes. Why I say this is because I have an entire full list of the schemes and policies which were either discontinued or they have done a cost cutting on the schemes and policies which were made in the UPA regime to uplift the minority community, starting from the pre-matric scholarship in which the students were given scholarship from class 1 to 8. They completely abolished it. Going on to the NAMF scholarship in which the fellowship was started to support the students aspiring for MPhil and PhD, they abolished it. The Udan, they abolished it. The Padho Pradesh in which the subsidies were given to the minority students to study abroad, it was completely abolished. The Hajj subsidy, it was completely abolished. And time again we have seen, Poonam, that how the sitting member of parliament and the member of legislative assembly from the Bharatiya Janata Party on record has disparaged the community by making hateful remarks, by calling them Atankwadi. One of them was a sitting member of parliament, and we have seen that how Bharatiya Janata Party's government later on gifted him the ticket against the sitting chief minister of the Delhi. So we have continuously seen that. Now what we need is the respect which we had in the time of the UPA, not what we have been snatched from after the 2014 when BJP has come in power. And also, like when you were running your story, you had played that how PM Modi, allow me to speak for 10 seconds about how PM Modi was attending programs like Sufi nights and all of that. I'd like to remind he is the same Pradhan Mantri who had spoken in the second phase of election of Lok Sabha that इनको आप इनके कपड़ों से पहचान लेंगे, ये ज्यादा बच्चे पैदा करते हैं, आपका मंगलसूत्र छीन लेंगे. These are the kind of statements which have come from the stature of the Prime Minister. I do not.
As far as the Mangalsutra comment is concerned, Nikat Abbas, I don't think the Prime Minister ever said that the Muslim community or the minority community was trying to do that. It was aimed at political rivals of the BJP.
It was a complete target.
But
let's be real, Poonam.
Sure.
Let's be real.
I mean, it's about attributing motives. It's about reading between the lines when probably none exist. But Sanju Verma, as far as the opposition is concerned, they say that you may be doing all of these schemes, you may be announcing these kind of campaigns, but that's like putting a band-aid where you need perhaps a surgery.
Poonam, first and foremost, let me start with one of my favorite Hindi adages. बर्बादे गुलिस्ता करने को बस एक ही उल्लू काफी था, यहाँ तो हर शाख पे उल्लू बैठा है, अंजामे गुलिस्ता क्या होगा. Now let me come to the moot point. I always say that, I will endorse what I have to say with hard facts. I'm not going to sit here and engage in baseless and reckless rhetoric and make arguments which do not make any coherent sense to your viewers. First and foremost, when Prime Minister Narendra Modi says sabka saath, sabka vikas, sabka vishwas, sabka prayas, he's not engaging in any jumlebazi as the opposition would like everyone to believe. And the best example of that is this. 31% of Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana allocated for minorities, especially Muslims. 33% of Ayushman Bharat, the biggest beneficiaries are minorities, particularly Muslims. 37% of Pradhan Mantri Mudra Yojana, more than 25 lakh crore loans have been given, by the way. The biggest beneficiaries are minorities, particularly Muslims. Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana, 36% allocation for minorities, especially Muslims. And these data points can be verified in the archives of the Finance Ministry. I don't have the habit of sitting and giving wrong data. क्योंकि कुछ बोलना है तो कुछ भी बोल के निकल जाओ. That's not the way I function. Now let me also say this. In the last 10 or 11 years of the Modi dispensation, more than 27,000 minority students have been given scholarships for higher studies, and at the mid and primary level, more than 110 million. 110 million का मतलब है 11 crore students from minority communities, particularly Muslims, at the primary and secondary level have availed of government scholarships, and the allocation is 4 times higher than what Manmohan Singh did from 2004 to 2014. तो पहली बात तो ये है, आंकड़े साबित करते हैं कि मुसलमानों के लिए जितना प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी के नेतृत्व के तहत हुआ है, that never happened in the previous 6 or 7 decades. Now the second point that I want to say, I feel that educated Muslims are the biggest, wrongdoers. They do a great disservice to their entire community. यहाँ बैठकर टीवी डिबेट पर प्रोग्रेसिव होने का भाषण और ढकोसला करने की बजाय, let me ask, how many Muslims actually supported, and so-called progressive Muslims supported the Modi government when we decided to make instant triple talaq illegal and unconstitutional? टीवी डिबेट पर बैठकर मॉडर्निटी का जामा पहनकर सबका साथ सबका विकास की दुहाई देने वाले एक्चुअली दे हैव पेड लिप सर्विस टू मुस्लिम्स फॉर द लॉन्गेस्ट टाइम. जमीन पर उतरकर यदि मुसलमानों की भलाई के लिए किसी ने काम किया है तो वो मोदी सरकार ने. एंड आई विल जस्ट एंड बाय सेइंग दिस, पूनम, देयर वर 2 famous committees set up by the Congress party to ensure the improvement of the lot of Muslims. One was the Ranganath Mishra committee and one was the Rajendra Sachar committee. And there was one thing common between both these committees. Ranganath Mishra committee और Rajendra Sachar committee दोनों ने एक ही बात कही, that 94.7% Muslims under successive Congress regimes did not even have access to basic clean drinking water. आज चाहे उज्ज्वला योजना हो या जल जीवन मिशन हो या मुद्रा योजना हो या पीएम किसान योजना हो या पीएम फसल बीमा योजना हो, ये देखकर एलोकेशन नहीं की जाता कि भाई सर के ऊपर क्या गोल टोपी है या चेहरे पर बुर्खा लगा हुआ है. These schemes, the welfare,
sure, and these welfare schemes are meant for, they're meant for all communities, they're not meant for specific communities. And this particular campaign, Priyanka Bharti, is also not just for Eid or for the Muslim community. It's meant for several other festivals through the year, is what the BJP says. But why is the RJD or the opposition linking this to elections in a state which are not going to happen for at least 6 months from now?
BJP talking about Muslims is so humorous. Anyone can laugh on them. Because if I talk about data, Human Rights Watch has published a report which says that Mr. Modi made Islamophobic comments in one of 110 campaign speeches, followed by Ajay Bisht, who made 89 Islamophobic comments, followed by Amit Shah, who made 58, and in which UP topped. So what Modi will deliver is in the future, but what he has already delivered is seen by whole nation. He has delivered hate speeches. He has delivered garlanding of rapists who raped Bilkis Bano. He has given a saugat in the parliament, saugat of abusing a minority MP by Ramesh Budhuri. No one has forgotten that. He has given a saugat of abolishing MANF, Manav Scholarship, Fellowship, which was given to PhD scholars, MPhil scholars. That is what he has done. And it is not the first time that PM Modi or his ministers have made hatred speeches against Muslims. They have done it with Dalits. They have done it with Adivasis. They have done it with women. I will just quote what Mr. Modi himself wrote in his book Karma Yogi, because I want to be very specific about it. He wrote, I do not believe that they, manual scavengers, have been doing this job just to sustain their livelihood. Had this been so, they would not have continued this job generation after generation. At some point of time, somebody must have got enlightenment that this manual scavenger duty to work is for happiness of the entire society and the gods. So here the Prime Minister is justifying manual scavenging and mocking the experiences of Valmiki community. Here is the anti-Dalit mindset of PM. So I am just saying is that he has almost all the time to time reflected what BJP thinks about minorities, what BJP thinks about Dalits. Because recently, if I talk about one of his MLAs from UP, he made a comment: whoever says Jai Bhim is Gaddar, whoever says Jai Bhim, wo gunda hota hai. And we have also seen Amit Shah ji mocking our Baba Saheb Ambedkar, saying Ambedkar mat karo. So this is what BJP thinks about minorities. This is how much they are concerned about minorities, about Dalits, about Adivasis, about OBCs, because they have done nothing for us. They think that we are here for charity. We are not here for charity. We are here for jobs. And
but why is it charity when the BJP does it, Priyanka Bharti? Why is it not charity when the opposition does it? I mean, are such campaigns not run by the opposition? Are there not quotas for minorities as recently as being announced by one of your allies in Karnataka? Is that not charity then?
It was not, see, reservations are in any form, not a form of charity. They are.
But reservation reservation based on religion is not allowed as per the constitution.
Obviously, it cannot be allowed. That's why we, the party of RJD,
Telangana government announcing crores of rupees for iftar is not charity as per you. Is that what you're saying?
What? I couldn't hear your question.
Crores of rupees allocated by the Telangana government by one of your allies, the Congress. Nighat Abbas is here as well, and she used the word charity too. The Telangana government doing that for iftar parties, for iftar for the Muslim community, is that not charity?
Obviously,
or is it okay if the opposition does it, but it's not if the BJP does it?
The whole India has seen that there is not a single minister in the cabinet of Mr. Modi. That is what they are doing. So everyone knows what is their motive for the minorities. Tell me, is there a single Muslim leader present right now in the cabinet of Mr. Modi? Just show me.
Okay, Sanju Verma, quick rebuttal before I get in Kailash Adhikari as well. He's been patiently waiting.
Yeah. You know, Poonam, first and foremost, let me categorically dispute what the RJD spokesperson said. Prime Minister Narendra Modi never garlanded the Bilkis Bano rapists. Shame on this woman for lying brazenly with impunity on national television. Shut up.
BJP leaders did too now.
Okay, let's try and keep this civil and not. Okay, so I request all my panelists to keep this civil. Let's not speak over each other. I'll give everyone their time to rebut. Priyanka Bharti, I'll come to you. I'll give you your time to rebut.
Yes. I did not heckle her. Let her show courtesy.
Go ahead, Sanju Verma.
And Poonam, let me just say one thing. I, as the national spokesperson, have been asked on a zillion debates. Do you support what Ramesh Bidhuri had to say about a Muslim leader on the floor of the parliament? बिना हिचकिचाए मैंने कहा जो रमेश बिधूरी ने कहा वो गलत था. मुझे बिल्किस बानो के बारे में पूछा गया, मैंने कहा जो हुआ था वो गलत हुआ था. I want to tell the RJD, चारा चोर लालू यादव के प्रवक्ता सुनिए काम छोड़कर
चोर की प्रवक्ता जाहिल गवार अगर इस तरह की भाषा इस्तेमाल करेगी
such kind of language and this kind of heckling does not take the debate anywhere. It digresses from the subject at hand. Priyanka Bharti, just a second please. I'll give you your time. 10 seconds, Sanju Verma.
Thank you. No, Poonam, I did not heckle anyone when the Prime Minister was being abused. Yes, so can I get my time please? आप यदि गलत इल्जाम लगाएंगे सुनना भी सीखिए. डिबेट में सिर्फ आकर बोलना नहीं है. Blah 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 blah. I'm not here to listen to your blah blah. Now let me say one thing, Poonam. I always say that being Hindu, being a proud Hindu does not mean you have to be an Islamophobe. And I personally believe if you have the guts to condemn what happened to a Junaid Khan, what happened to a Pehlu Khan, what happened to a Tabrez Ansari, you should also have the guts to condemn what happened to Shah Bano in 1985-86. A poor Muslim woman was denied a monthly alimony of a mere 179 rupees because Rajiv Gandhi, he completely revoked the Supreme Court verdict on this. And this Congress party, which is today Muslim League 2.0, Shah Bano ke saath jo hua, उसको भूलकर आज अपीजमेंट पॉलिटिक्स का खेल खेलते हुए नरेंद्र मोदी को पाठ पढ़ाने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं। बट आई ऑलवेज से जनता जनार्दन, चुनावी जीत बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है। एंड संभाजी नगर विद 67% मुस्लिम इलेक्टोरेट, this time Atul Moreshwar Save was declared an MLA, a BJP MLA from Sambhaji Nagar, defeating guess whom? Imtiaz Jalil of AIMIM. And
Sure, so
again
there's
in
something that
Kundali.
must be resonating with people on ground. The political narrative will continue. But Kailash Adhikari, is there such thing as altruism in politics? I mean, the expectation is that some of these decisions, some of these campaigns will bear political dividend, isn't it?
You know, Poonam, firstly, once the BJP government came to power in 2014, from day one their plank has been Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas. And it's been 11 years, the third term of the BJP government, and they have time and again proved that all their policies, all the steps that are taken by the government, be it the state governments where they are in power or the central government, or the initiatives taken by the Honorable Prime Minister, it is towards the entire, for each and every citizen of India, irrespective of their caste, creed or religion. And now, because we are entering into a phase where we will celebrate the festival of Eid, naturally the government, continuing with its flank of Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, has organized the Saugat-e-Modi, which is naturally a very big step. And now the opposition who are trying to look at it as, you know, as an attempt to woo or as an attempt of Batoing Khairat is very frivolous in nature. Look at the kind of growth that the country has seen over the past 11 years, and it is not a growth that is related to only Hindus. Now, if people have, if employment has risen, if the economy has risen, if India has become the 5th largest economy, if India is going to be the 3rd largest economy by 2029, then we all are the beneficiaries. जब जनधन योजना आई, तब उसमें सभी के खाते खुले हैं, and data predicts that from 71 to 93% of Muslims have benefited from Jan-Dhan योजना. आज अगर डिजिटल इंडिया है, आज अगर यूपीआई पेमेंट ऐप है, अगर आज आप कोई भी सर्विस एक फ्रॉम द क्लिक ऑफ अ बटन और अफोर्डेबल इंटरनेट हुआ है, तो वो किसी एक हिंदू के लिए नहीं हुआ है, वो सबके लिए हुआ है. ये शायद हम भूलते हैं. And you know, what is the hard truth which I can just, in one simple line I like to say, prior to 2014, the party which has ruled the most in this country, believe it or not, the only thing that they have done is to exploit the minority community for their own political benefit. आपने उनको जहां थे वहीं रखा या और गरीब कर दिया ताकि आपके डिसाइसिव पॉलिटिक्स के वो हमेशा शिकार बने, क्योंकि पढ़ लिख के अगर आगे बढ़ जाएंगे तो आपकी डिसाइसिव पॉलिटिक्स उन्हें पता चल जाएगी एंड फिर वो आपके लिए वोट नहीं करेंगे. जितने आप उन्हें अंधकार में रखेंगे, जितनी भी है रीजनल पार्टीज है इंडिया अलायंस की, जितने आप एक माइनॉरिटी को अंधकार में रखेंगे, उन्हें अच्छी तालीम नहीं देंगे, उन्हें पढ़ने की अच्छी सुविधाएं नहीं देंगे, जब तक आप उन्हें इक्वल नहीं ट्रीट कराएंगे तब तक वो आपके शिकंजे में आते रहेंगे.
बट कैलाश अधिकारी, स्पीकिंग ऑफ
आप उन्हें बताएं कि वो माइनॉरिटी है, वो भारत के नागरिक है.
बट कैलाश अधिकारी, द क्रिटिसिज्म ऑफ द ऑपोजिशन इज दैट दे आर नॉट बीइंग ट्रीटेड एज इक्वल्स.
मैं, संजू जी, प्रियंका जी, मैडम जो यहाँ पे बैठी है, हम सब भारत के नागरिक हैं.
But Kailash Adhikari, the criticism of the opposition is that Muslims are not treated on par. It's that these schemes are an eyewash, which is the allegation.
उन्होंने नहीं, allegation तो उन्होंने बोल दिया तो हो गया. क्या तथ्य है? क्या तथ्य है कहने पे? जो ये कहते हैं कि ऑनरेबल प्राइम मिनिस्टर के कैबिनेट में माइनॉरिटीज नहीं है या नहीं है. Your while we are in this broadcast over the past 22 minutes, I can see on your screen the entire data that you have broadcasted for the audiences, be it Kerala, Delhi, Meghalaya or Nagaland, the kind of minority people from the minority communities that the BJP has shielded. मुझे तो ये शब्द minority से भी नफरत है. क्यों किसी को minority बुलाना? When Honorable Prime Minister treats each and every one, all the 140 crore Indians as his own sons or daughters, तो ये क्या है majority और minority? जब ऑनरेबल प्राइम मिनिस्टर एंड द पार्टी एट सेंटर डज नॉट बिलीव इन सब शब्द, ये माइनॉरिटी शब्द को हम किस एंगल से लेके जा रहे हैं और इसकी परिभाषा क्या है?
Priyanka Bharti, I see your hand going up, but speaking of Bihar, and I want to bring in the elections once again. First of all, the elections are far away, but there is dynamics at play. The entry of AIMIM the last time around, well, their MLAs may have switched over to RJD in between and gained strength to the RJD, but the dynamics between the RJD and the Congress, all of that is also problematic as far as the state of Bihar is concerned. Is that something that concerns the RJD? Do you think the BJP can actually give you that kind of fight with moves like this? Is that why we're seeing the responses that we're seeing from the RJD today?
most of the it was just yesterday's news that most of the Muslims have boycotted the iftar party organized by JDU, organized by BJP, organized by Chirag Paswan. They have boycotted it because they know that what thinking and what ideas against Muslims these people have in mind. In the Indian history, for the first time, BJP does not have a single Muslim MP either in Rajya Sabha or in Lok Sabha. Just forget cabinet. They don't have a single MP. That's what I'm talking about. And when Sanju Verma and the analyst sitting here, first of all, I'll talk about the analyst. He said that सभी पढ़े लिखे होने चाहिए तभी देश का विकास होगा. I totally agree. And what BJP spokesperson contradicted him right here, right now. She said those Muslims minorities who are well read, who are literate, who are educated, are more threat to the nation. Right now, she mentioned this point. So just read between the lines. For our Muslims who are well read, who are well educated, are threat for the nation.
I don't think that's what Sanju Verma was trying to hint at. But there are attempts that are being made to try and twist the narrative, as we've seen in political discourse, as we're seeing this time around as well. Whether there is going to be any impact electorally for the BJP or otherwise because of this, we'll have to wait and watch when elections do happen in Bihar. But unfortunately, I'm completely out of time, so I have to leave it there. I thank you all for joining us here on this edition of The Right Stand. It is time for a quick break, but on the other side, we have an exclusive conversation as Anand Narasimhan sits down with former Army Chief General Naravane on his journey from being the nation's top general to now an author.
Mr. President, your reaction to the story in The Atlantic that said that some of your top cabinet officials and aides had been discussing very sensitive material through Signal and included an Atlantic reporter for that. What is your response to that?
I don't know anything about it. I'm not a big fan of The Atlantic. To me, it's a magazine that's going out of business. I think it's not much of a magazine, but I know nothing about it. You're saying that they had what?
They were using Signal to coordinate on sensitive materials and
having to do with what? Having to do with what? What were they talking about?
With the Houthis.
The Houthis? You mean the attack on the Houthis? Well, it couldn't have been very effective because the attack was very effective. I can tell you that. I don't know anything about it. You're telling me about it for the first time.
Your information about war plans against the Houthis in Yemen was shared with a journalist in The Atlantic, and were those details classified?
You're talking about a deceitful and highly discredited so-called journalist who's made a profession of peddling hoaxes time and time again, to include the hoaxes of Russia, or the fine people on both sides hoax, or suckers and losers hoax. So this is the guy that peddles in garbage. This is what he does. I would love to comment on the Houthi campaign because of the skill and courage of our troops. I've monitored it very closely from the beginning. And you see, we've been managing 4 years of deferred maintenance under the Trump administration. Our troops, our sailors were getting shot at as targets. Our ships couldn't sail through. And when they did shoot back, it was purely defensively or at shacks in Yemen. President Trump said, no more. We will reestablish deterrence. We will open freedom of navigation, and we will ultimately decimate the Houthis, which is exactly what we're doing as we speak from the beginning, overwhelmingly.
Why were those details shared on Signal, and how did you learn that a journalist was privy to the targets, the types of weapons used?
I've heard I was characterized. Nobody was texting war plans, and that's all I have to say about that. Thank you. I appreciate it.
The NSC said it was authentic.
It's not, again, certainly not commenting on any particular filing or any particular case. If you lie in your efforts to come to the United States to get a visa for any reason, or for a green card, maybe there haven't been repercussions, or we haven't done things properly in the past. A lot of things have changed with the election of Donald Trump, as the American people have said. What has happened in the past is now unacceptable. We see the impact on people's lives, everybody's lives, and it's not anything new. We want
Namaste, Jai Hind, and welcome to yet another Zara Hatke conversation with someone I have huge admiration for. He's a former Army Chief, the 28th Army Chief, General Naravane. General Sahab, Namaste.
Namaskar and Jai Hind, and glad to be here and having this conversation with you.
This is a very unique conversation because not everyone expects a military thriller from a general. And that's what the Cantonment Conspiracy is. That's the book. And I'll tell you, and Karan Thapar is right when he says that the pages turn themselves, because I have not been able to get off it. What brought this about? Let's start from there.
Well, firstly, it's very encouraging to get such positive feedback. When I thought of writing work of fiction, I wasn't sure whether I will actually be able to pull it off, but to go by what you are saying and what Karan Thapar has said, perhaps I've taken some baby steps in that direction. But I had gone, when I go and give my talks and lectures in various places, at one of the venues where I had gone in the evening, I was staying in a colonial type of a house, not quite unlike where we are sitting right now. And when I was having an after dinner walk with little moonlight and all, I thought this is the ideal situation or location for a murder mystery. So the location came first. That let's write a murder mystery set on that particular house. So it started, you can say, in a reverse direction. And then I started making the plot of what should it be all about.
But as you create the characters, the RRR as you call them, Rohit, Renuka and Rehmat, how much of their personalities reflect who General Naravane is? Are there bits and bobs of your own life experiences in this story?
No, each character is a person by himself or herself, and I have tried to put into them the qualities which are expected out of army personnel as far as Rohit and Renuka are concerned, and of course the general qualities that we expect of honesty, being forthright, which is expected of all of us, irrespective of what is our profession or social standing. That is also one part which I am trying to bring out, that it doesn't matter what your background is, as long as your heart is in the right place.
So you have also said this in the future and not in the past. So you've deliberately set it in 2026. sometime July 2026 onwards, if my memory serves me right from the book. But you also said you've picked the characters as one is a third generation army officer and one is a civilian turned army officer. Is there a reason why you chose?
Yeah, this was to bring about, firstly, that the army and armed forces are quite egalitarian. We are not fixated that we can only have people in the army from army backgrounds. Whoever wants to join the army, when I say army, I mean armed forces, but whoever wants to join is always welcome, provided he meets the criteria and passes all the tests required. So that was why I made it such a wide range, which will also be actually motivation for people who read the book, that they can also aspire to join the armed forces.
But you also, without saying, said a lot of things, so I'll come to it one by one. One is women in combat, because you say she's one of the first batches where women are officially in the infantry, so directly into arms, so in combat. Are you a votary of it?
Well, for that, I have to go back a number of years. When I have two daughters, and when my daughters were young, and when they were deciding, what they would like to be and aspire for, so they said, we don't mind joining the army, but we will join only if we can go to Sikh Light Infantry, which is my regiment.
7th Battalion Sikh Light Infantry.
So obviously, women in the army, they had already started. Short Service Commission was already there.
Yeah.
But women in the combat arms was undreamt of then, and it is not even there now. So that thought was there in my mind, So in a way, by making Renuka join the infantry, I am also putting my daughter's dreams into, into action, so to say.
But when you write that, you also say that there will be the psychological resistance, the force of habit, and what women will have to go through as they embrace, or the system embraces, women cadre or women officers. Is that a reality? Is that true?
Well, the army has always been a very male-dominated force. And as in, when women have started joining initially as short service commission officers, now they've been granted permanent commission. They are now commanding their regiments at various. Very soon they will also get into the higher ranks, the directive ranks, brigadier and above. So these changes will happen slowly and steadily. We have always had women in the medical corps, and they have risen to very high ranks, 3-star ranks, which is the highest rank in the army. So it's not that we are not used to having women in the armed forces, but in active units who also serve in field areas, that is something new. And as with anything new, there are challenges which, and those challenges we'll have to learn on the job how to tackle them.
But you also show two sides of the coin, no? Somebody says, "Arey, ye to Fauji parivar se hai, so he's privileged." But from the Fauji parivar's perspective and that Rohit's perspective, he has to A, live up to his father and grandfather's reputation. B, he will always feel, the attitude will be, "Arey, you are getting privilege, so we will not give you privilege." So he has to also prove himself. On the other hand, there is the civilian thing. Tum to civilian ho, tumko kaise pata Fauji based kya hai? So that's what Renuka deals with. Is this a reality when it happens? How do officers deal? And you've also seen how different officers show different approaches to it.
Yeah, so these are all different facets of life, I would say. Nothing is ever so cut and dried. Some people are always jealous of your background, and as I've said, they think you've got it easy, you got it made. Even if you go if you go for a foreign posting, they say ye baap ke wajah se gaya hai. So they never think it was your effort.
रोहित भी बोलता है ना, मैं तो I aced my firing, I aced my this, वो तो मेरे father ने नहीं किया.
So but where there is any place where subjectivity is involved, because firing the bullet hit is a bullet hit.
Correct.
But where a little bit of subjectivity is involved, there definitely people think that family connections and all have worked in your favor.
As someone who's led Bharat and Bharat's armed forces through some of the toughest times, 2019 to 2022 was the toughest, if you were to see, in a century for us from multiple levels. I'll come to that in a bit. Do you believe that we are ready? Because there are a lot of women who are asking for combat roles. Do you believe that our system is ready and we should consider? Because एक ये भी है कि हमारा तो ठीक है, लेकिन अगर war time में, conflict time में, दुश्मन के हाथ, a woman officer, woman personnel is caught or लग गए, then how would we answer back to society, back to people? Is there a thought process there which says, or is this a thought process that says women can't get as physical as men, and we can't have the same parallel standards, and that's what जंग में दीवार अपना height male man woman देख करके नहीं change करेगी. That's also another argument. So your thoughts?
So as I said, there are always many facets to every argument. The physical aspect is of course a major one. And that is because of your bodily structure. It is not that the women would not like to compete or do as well or lift as much weight or run as fast. After all, even in professional sports, you have different categories for men and women.
Correct.
It's not that they compete together, because it's just not physically possible, whether it is tennis or athletics. So obviously those changes will always, or those differences will always be there. But given all that, once we look at each arm and service and the role that you are expected to play in peacetime and wartime, there are a lot of fields where it is possible, where the gender doesn't really make so much difference. And as far as wartime activities are concerned, when a breakthrough happens, or when enemy, after all, when an enemy attacks, he is also going to be successful at times.
Correct.
And it is not that PWs only happen at the front line.
Yeah.
It happens throughout the combat zone, and you could be anywhere in the combat.
The other part is the army. There are many who believe that the army is not open to reform. It's resistant to reform. But the way you have incorporated the Agniveers into the story narrative points otherwise. So, your thoughts there? And you are bracketed as someone who had certain reservations about Agniveer as it was being formulated, and you were in service at that time. So, your thoughts?
So, firstly, the armed forces are not averse to reform, but the older an organization and the more hierarchical it is, the more difficult it is to implement that reform. And I say this not only from the perspective of Agniveers, but even when I wanted to make some changes, very inconsequential and minor changes, I have hit a wall within my own organization. So it is not that, for example, one of the things which I was very against is giving bouquets at the airport and things like that. So I put a total stop to it.
हाँ, पर चाय समोसा मत रोकना आप.
नहीं. So, but even that, it took a long time for people to realize that you actually mean it, and that you're not just saying it for the sake of showing that you are a no frills man or something like that. But in spite of that, people used to turn up at the airport with bouquets.
Bouquets, हाँ.
Now
You're saying it, but you expect it.
But you expect, हाँ. तो कहने की बात कुछ और, so that kind of, so reform is something which you have to not only believe in yourself, but the organization also should think that yes, this is a step in the right direction. And when both these interests meet, then the reform is more likely to be accepted.
But from the inside and from the outside, it's unfortunate that Agniveer Mukhtiar lost his life, but that was an important cog in the whole plot. But do you believe this is a transformational thing? Is it going to help, hurt?
So,
or do you still have your reservations? Because you spend time outside also, looking at it from the outside also.
So my point always has been, and I made it earlier also, that unless you try something out, how will you know whether it works or not?
Correct.
And change is what we say is always, change is inevitable.
Correct.
And changes or reforms to an HR policy is part of your evolution. After all, not very many people know that till the mid 70s there was no pensionable service.
Correct.
It's only in 76 that the terms and conditions were changed and this pensionable part was brought in. So if a change of that type could be then done, then why not a change now to a different model?
इसमें एक आर्गुमेंट है सर, नाम नमक निशान की बात करते हैं ना, ये निशान को लेकर के दे से दैट रेजिमेंटल लॉयल्टी that will get eroded. There are many who believe this. Do you think that's going to happen with the Agniveers? कि regimental loyalty नहीं रहेगी?
Well, we've had short service commissioned officers. They also leave after 5 years. But 20 years later, they still come for our reunions. They have not lost touch with their battalions or regiments. Neither has the regiment lost touch with them. So it is how much effort you put into a relationship.
Correct.
And relationships are two-way. So I'm sure that if everyone puts an effort into it, that aspect of Naam Namak Nishan should not really go away or will get diluted. It's what you do.
Because one of the arguments was this 75-25 cent fare. How much to retain, how much to hire. And if you look at the absolute numbers, we have only about 27 to 30% of our defense budget actually available for capex, because we've got operational expenses, pension expenses, etc. So somewhere somebody is trying to find a midway and say, how do I increase my bandwidth to be able to buy more for the military equipments? Is there a solution in sight for you? Or do you believe that in the future, as you've written it, things will sort themselves out?
I think things will sort themselves out. In fact, recently only the army chief made certain statements, I think, in the Raisina dialogue, that some changes are under review. So as I said, policies are not written in stone, and you can never get everything 100% right at the beginning. So if tweaks are required, those will happen. But tweaks based on empirical evidence and not based on emotion. So that is how we have to look at it.
Between 2019 to 2022, Bharat saw COVID, Bharat saw Galwan, and Bharat saw perhaps the biggest troop movement and pushback with the enemy on the eastern border, with the Chinese. So when you look back at that, are we better prepared for a similar scenario in the future? Second, at that time, how did you manage the mobilization and mental makeup? Was there a shift in the thought process of our own military? And will you say that the ghosts of 1962 are now buried?
See, COVID came as a surprise to the whole world, not just to India. But I think within the armed forces, because we stay in cantonments, we were able to manage our own setup and our health much better. But having said that, I will also say that we tested all our personnel numerous times, because we could not afford that even one infected person should reach the front line. Or the pickets at inaccessible places where because of him the whole post could get affected. So we did multiple rounds of testing before anybody was really allowed to get forward deployed. And I think because of that we were able to maintain a very high standard of
But that must have been a tough thing, no, when you're making such an operational movement towards Ladakh, moving so many regiments, so many troop movements happening.
That's why, because we took certain proactive measures, we were able to, in spite of it being at the height of the first wave, we were able to deploy so many people, and perhaps that is what the adversary may not have counted on, anticipated that in spite of COVID and all those restrictions in place, we could induct so many troops into Ladakh. And for that I must again, and I've said it number of occasions, and I once again must express my gratitude to the Indian Air Force and their strategic lift capability, which allowed us to carry out such rapid movements, which once again I think was not anticipated, that we will be able to move so many troops into.
Was that one of the first examples to say a unified command kind of a format can work for us? Because there are again 2-3 thoughts there.
No, we've always been having unified structure. In 71 war also we had it. So it's not that we don't coordinate with each other, but having a unified command will make things even easier. So if we gave in a demand for aircraft, they were always available the next morning. It was not that it was a long convoluted process and we said we want it tomorrow and it came 1 week later. It was not that. So everyone rises to the occasion. So there was no cause for complaint as such. But it can be even easier if all the elements, all the combat elements, all the support elements are under one commander. The timings and the coordination will be that much simpler. It's a way of becoming more and more efficient.
So many believe कि हमारा सबसे ज़्यादा vulnerability as a country is our waters, and we don't focus much on our naval strength. And unless there is a unified command structure where the Navy, Air Force and the armed forces, like with the US and some of the other nations happens, we will not be able to orient ourselves for the next war, which would be either on data or in the waters. That's what many are saying. Your thoughts? Final 2 questions. So yeah.
No, the naval aspects are not totally ignored. We are very much conscious of India's very important geostrategic location astride the sea lanes of communication through the Indian Ocean, and what all we need to do to overcome those vulnerabilities. And in fact, the Navy has grown many-fold in the last decade or so. In fact, about 7-8 years ago, the entire Indian Navy strength was equal to the Indian Army officer strength. That was the gap. That was the sort of relative strengths. But now the Navy is almost double what they were earlier. So definitely the Navy is getting the importance that it requires. But again, it is a capital intensive change. Every warship, every submarine, an aircraft carrier is not just the carrier itself, but the aircraft that go onto it.
Yeah.
So that kind of capital investment is obviously, I won't say lacking, but it will happen at its own speed.
Given you need to have the money to be able to spend.
We have to have money. We are a developing country after all. So it's not that we can spend. It's not a bottomless well that the finance minister can just take money out of. We are always looking ahead, learning from the wars which are going on, especially the Russia-Ukraine war, what is happening in Gaza, how difficult it is fighting in built-up areas, Fibua as we call it.
Correct.
So we are learning all the time from whatever is happening all over the world. And not only these operational aspects, we are also looking at the technological changes.
And do you think there will be more people who will be interested in the armed forces and joining the armed forces after this book?
It should be a motivating factor that when I've tried to show various facets of army life, whether in training, whether operations, the social aspects also. It's not that we are all the time only deployed on the borders and having a tough life. We also have our own.
You have your peacetime responsibilities also.
Peacetime, so it's all encompassed. I think it should motivate more people to join the armed.
General Naravane, it's lovely speaking with you, sir. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Thank you, sir. Jai Hind.
Jai Hind.
Co-powered by
Mr. President, your reaction to the story in The Atlantic that said that some of your top cabinet officials and aides had been discussing very sensitive material through Signal and included an Atlantic reporter for that. What is your response to that?
I don't know anything about it. I'm not a big fan of The Atlantic. To me, it's a magazine that's going out of business. I think it's not much of a magazine, but I know nothing about it. You're saying that they had what?
They were using Signal to coordinate on sensitive materials and
Having to do with what? Having to do with what? What were they talking about?
With the Houthis.
The Houthis, you mean the attack on the Houthis? Well, it couldn't have been very effective because the attack was very effective, I can tell you that. I don't know anything about it. You're telling me about it for the first time.
Your information about war plans against the Houthis in Yemen was shared with a journalist in The Atlantic, and were those details classified?
You're talking about a deceitful and highly discredited so-called journalist who's made a profession of peddling hoaxes time and time again, to include the hoaxes of Russia, or the fine people on both sides hoax, or suckers and losers hoax. So this is the guy that peddles in garbage. This is what he does. I would love to comment on the Houthi campaign because of the skill and courage of our troops. I've monitored it very closely from the beginning. And you see, we've been managing 4 years of deferred maintenance under the Trump administration. Our troops, our sailors were getting shot at as targets. Our ships couldn't sail through. And when they did shoot back, it was purely defensively or at shacks in Yemen. President Trump said, no more. We will reestablish deterrence, we will open freedom of navigation, and we will ultimately decimate the Houthis, which is exactly what we're doing as we speak from the beginning, overwhelmingly.
Why were those details shared on Signal, and how did you learn that a journalist was privy to the targets, the types of weapons used?
I've heard I was characterized. Nobody was texting war plans, and that's all I have to say about that. Thank you. Appreciate it.
The NSC said it was authentic.
It's not, again, certainly not commenting on any particular filing or any particular case. If you lie in your efforts to come to the United States to get a visa for any reason, or for a green card, maybe there haven't been repercussions or we haven't done things properly in the past. A lot of things have changed with the election of Donald Trump, as the American people have said. What has happened in the past is now unacceptable. We see the impact on people's lives, everybody's lives, and it's not anything new. We want.
Good evening, this is Brass Tacks. I'm Zaka Jacob. Comedian Kunal Kamra continues to face the heat for the jokes that he cracked on Maharashtra Deputy Chief Minister Eknath Shinde. He's been summoned by the Mumbai police for questioning. He's requested for more time to join the probe. But he's also released a statement saying that he's not going to apologize for calling Shinde a traitor. But the Mahayuti seems to be closing ranks around the Deputy Chief Minister, saying that there have to be some sort of limits to the freedom of expression. But here's the catch. While we all agree that there has to be freedom of speech and that comics should not be arrested because they make fun of a politician, today in Chennai, a popular YouTuber named Saugat-e-Modi, he had his home vandalized allegedly by Congress and DMK